in my practice the last few days, the last one on the review, I kind of paraphrasing, but it had to do with our thought system and that I've created this. And kind of the prison that the chatter can take.
The prison that the chatter?
The prison, but it's like it's all my creation. Has brought up, again, tenderness, a lot of self-compassion. It's like to be justified in my way of thinking, so I'm justified in my anger or being a victim. And and it just brought it up. That it kind of keeps me in like being a little girl. So just kind of acknowledging that. And I think one of the last sentences was that I'm now willing to let go. And so in my silent meditation, which I practice every day, most days, letting go is difficult to describe.
Mm-hmm.
But in letting go of thoughts, or at least letting them be, kind of like riding, down the river. And so they're there, but it's not all I am. I'm also observing them and not holding on. I'm like, well, this is an action of letting go.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever story or whatever it is that's been kind of keeping me in this mentality, I can just observe it and not hold on too tightly like I do in silent meditation, which has been easier. I've been practicing for about 20 years, so there are days where it feels impossible, but most of the time there is a letting go and observing my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. That's the practice. Yeah. I think it's helpful to remember too that this idea that, first of all, that the personal, separate, individual self, Jeff Bailey, in my case, or Lisa Cutchin in your case, the part that identifies with Jeff Bailey as a body, for example, is not the self that made the world. It's the ego mind behind it. It's sort of subconscious, right? It's back there. And so if we start to take personal responsibility for the world or personal responsibility for our mistakes, then we're simply reinforcing the ego. We're maintaining this false sense of separation out there as a separate Jeff Bailey or a separate body. And so what it is a practice of gently taking responsibility for the ego construct that made this whole thing up. And so we keep kind of zooming back, and then the next most helpful thing and a very important thing is ask for help. That's what the Holy Spirit is. If that's what Jesus is for, it's what Buddha is for. If you have remember we talked about a beloved, someone who's made it, someone who represents perfect peace, to hold your hand and help you. And because the ego will be just as happy as if the self that takes the blame is the same self that tries to heal, you get nowhere. It's like telling yourself an affirmation or something. It's just lipstick, like the Course says, lipstick on a skeleton. You can't cover. You can only cover it up for so long, right? You really can't. So, wow, Lisa, thank you. When in doubt, ask for help. That's true prayer. And that's when we can get silent and sit quietly and just say, please, show me a better way. Show me the way out. And all prayers of the heart are the prayers that are answered. That's why we kind of have to get quiet. We have to get deep. The flippant, superficial thoughts and emotions, um, generally not the ones that get answered. All right. Lesson number 52. Today's review covers these ideas. We're going to start, before I get into these, let's start with your legs up on the wall and your head on the bolster. Okay. And then interlock your fingers behind your right thigh and bring your knee toward the center of your chest. Let the calf muscle rest into your fingers. Close your eyes. We're looking for the resistance. It's futile to try to pull the light into the darkness. That won't work. The yoga is to look for the resistance. Look for the disparaging thoughts of separation and fear. We look for them and then we hold them to the light and we ask for help. Okay, review number 1. I am upset because I see what is not there. Reality is never frightening. It is impossible that it could upset me. Reality brings only perfect peace. When I am upset, it is always because I have replaced reality with illusions I made up. Now remember, the I here is referring to the ego mind. The illusions are upsetting because I have given them reality and thus regard reality as an illusion. Nothing in God's creation is affected in any way by this confusion of mine. I am always upset by nothing. Okay, it may seem otherwise, and we can find all kinds of ways to justify our anger. But we can begin to rest. We can begin to actually rest even in a moment of anger and remind ourselves, whatever this thing that seems to be upsetting me is not really there. In fact, it's my anger that's hardening the whole situation and making it seem so real. Okay, release your leg up onto the wall. And bring the left knee, center chest, fingers behind the thigh, sink into the hip and the groin. The sensations and the shape can help you sink into the depths of your mind. Remember, we want to bring everything to the practice, the same way we bring all of our problems and all of our disparagements. We bring everything to the light. We bring it there and we ask for help. Review number 2, I see only the past. As I look about, I condemn the world I look upon. I call this seeing. I hold the past against everyone and everything, making them my enemies. When I have forgiven myself and remember who I am, in truth, I will bless everyone and everything I see. There will be no past and therefore no enemies. and I will look with love on all that I failed to see before. I see only the past. It's because we see only the past that obscures the power of now, the healing power of the present moment, which is not a cross section, it's not a sliver of time. The power of now is just beyond time, everlasting, loving presence. So we can use time to get still, we can use time to get quiet, we can use time to practice. But like the Course suggests deeper in the text, it says, we use time to slip beyond it. The same way we use the body to slip beyond it. Release your leg up onto the wall. Now cross the right ankle over the left knee. There you go. And see if you can get the big ankle bone on the inside part of your knee. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And you can get it there, but then it may not stay, and that's okay. As you slowly bend your left knee, you slide the foot down the wall, you get just the right sensation. Sometimes a little stretchy in the back of the right hip. Remember, in this practice, we don't go for the stretch. The stretch may show up, but we're going for something deeper. There's risk in stretching muscles. We're really here to stretch our minds, not our muscles. Now see if you can wrap your arms around the end of the bolster. Don't need to interlock the fingers. You can just have a wrap around or have them out in the T shape. And then slowly turn your head to the left. It's beautiful. Just let the shape work for you. Review idea number 3. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. I see only my own thoughts, and my mind is preoccupied with the past. There's the entire trick of the ego. I see only my own thoughts, and my mind is preoccupied with the past. What better way to stay trapped in a dream? What then can I see as it is? Let me remember that I look on the past to prevent the present from dawning on my mind. Let me understand that I am trying to use time against God. God is timeless, formless, perfect, and eternal. So, of course, time would be a defense against God. Let me learn to give the past away, realizing that in so doing, I am giving up nothing. The past is over, and it doesn't exist. And yet we cling to it. We think it's all we know, because we judge what seems like the present moment, and we anticipate the future based on our previous experiences, which only reinforces the pattern and almost ensures that difficulties will lie ahead of us. All the positive thinking, all the positive programming really won't overcome those deeper patterns. The way out is to go in. We gently, willingly go down the rabbit hole to bring up the stuff, which is what the yoga practice is for. And then we hold everything to the light and ask for help. Bring your head back to the center. And release your arms to your sides. Slide the left foot up the wall. And release the right foot up. Bend the left knee. Place the left foot on the right thigh near the knee. If you can, have the ankle bone on the inside. Slowly bend the knee. Different side, different sensation. Get it just right. The sensation moves you toward peaceful presence. Wrap your arms around the bolster and slowly turn your head to the right. Idea number 4. I see nothing as it is now. If I see nothing as it is now, it can truly be said that I see nothing. I can see only what is now. The choice is not whether to see the past or the present. The choice is merely whether to see or not. What I have chosen to see has cost me vision. Now I would choose again that I may see. So, because from an ego-minded perspective, we see only the past, therefore we see nothing as it is now. We pull the past into the now. And so recognizing that we choose again, that we may truly see. And as you know now from some of the later lessons, the goal is to unite and have Christ vision. We see from nowness. We see from the power of now. The idea, the way it's written here, reminds me a little bit of the soliloquy, to be or not to be. It says the choice is not whether to see the past or the present. The choice is merely whether to see or not. And the soliloquy really it can be interpreted in 2 ways. Because he's contemplating death, he's contemplating if he's going to be, if he's going to remain alive or quote, not to be and die, which is why he's afraid of the dreams that may come. There's a line in the Course that says, beware of the idea that death may bring you peace. But the soliloquy also applies to the here and now. To be, to unite and see with Christ's vision, or not, to remain disconnected and separate and egoic in nature. To be, to unite, or not. Now I would choose again that I may see. Bring your head back to the center. Slide your right leg up the wall. Release your left leg up. And gently bring your arms to your sides. Idea number 5. My thoughts do not mean anything. I have no private thoughts. Why? Because there's one mind. I have no private thoughts. It is only private thoughts of which I am aware. What can these thoughts mean? They do not exist, and so they mean nothing. Yet my mind is part of creation and part of its creator, God. Would I not rather join the thinking of the universe than to obscure all that is really mine with my pitiful and meaningless, quote unquote, private thoughts? If you want to advance your spiritual journey, have no private thoughts. Now, the Course says we don't need to have pure thoughts. We just need to have none that we would keep. So it doesn't mean you have to go spilling your guts. It might for you, but it doesn't mean you have to to, to, to doesn't mean that you have to divulge everything. It just means that in these moments, especially in relationship, where you're confronted with a family member or confronted with in various relationships, this willingness to simply tell the truth, it saves enormous amount of time. It may bring up some conflict, but it's conflict sometimes that we have to go through, the seeming conflict to get to the light. We can't have true vision. We won't be able to unite with our Creator as long as we hold meaningless private thoughts. The Course refers this to the secret dream. There's the dream that gets projected out, and then there's the dream that we hold just behind our eyes. These are the private thoughts. It's like a prison within a prison. We can start by turning them over to God. We can start by just letting them go. And if they were to get printed on the front page of the newspaper, we'd just be okay with it. So what? It's not who I am. Yeah. And yet we seem to identify so intimately with our private thoughts. All right, bend your knees and push yourself back. Stretch your arms, stretch your legs. And when you're ready, roll onto one side, push yourself up. Find a comfortable seat. Yeah, these reviews are, there's a lot. There's a lot to review here. And so just bring your hands to your heart, be gentle, be kind, be loving, be open. And just let the one idea, let one or two nuggets come to your heart. And those will be the nuggets you work on today. Namaste. Lisa was just asking a question, and this is something I've been considering doing now for a while, and I thought now's the time. So, time for a little graphic design. Okay, so we could draw a circle, and the circle could represent the mind. And then we can draw a line through it, and we can say the mind is split. Okay, seemingly split. On one part of the mind, we have the ego, and on one side, one part of the mind is spirit. Which side is true? The side that represents the voice for God. And we could say, okay, don't want this to get too confusing, but we could draw a line here and then we could say, okay, here's God. Above the line, this is our reality. Okay. And remember the Course says, into all of eternity there slipped a tiny mad idea in which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. That's why really we can begin to laugh and smile our way home. So spirit represents the voice for God. It's the memory of God that we took with us into the dream. The ego is the voice of separation. Like Lisa, you were saying. So the ego would represent fear. The ego would represent separation, darkness, guilt, grief, resentment, jealousy. The list goes on and on and on. Spirit represents love. And how do we get from one to the other? First of all, remember, there are no neutral thoughts. You can vacillate between the two very quickly. You can change your mind throughout the day, and you can notice. That is the practice, as we start to notice when it is I'm listening to the voice of the ego. It's always some form of fear or separation, depression, a feeling of helplessness. The ego doesn't have to only be arrogant. The ego can be the opposite of arrogant just as powerfully. So our practice is to move this way and really this way. We want to move back in spirit to the love and light that we are. That's why a lot of the ancient texts, whether it's the Greeks or the Vedas, and even the artwork that represented, art was really a powerful thing years and years ago. There's the halo that represented there's this feeling of ascension that represents the awakening. Okay, and that's not an accident. We do get this feeling of being lifted up, the opposite of depression. The moment we identify with the body, no matter how we identify with the body, it will lead to depression. That's why the more spirited we are, the more we unite with our reality, and the body just becomes this thing that is either going to represent the ego or spirit. It's going to be a communication device for one or the other. And at no single instant can it be both. So this is the ego mind, or this is the mind that is still outside of time and space. So then we could draw another line down here, and then we could say, okay, well, here's the earth, here's the sun and the universe and everything. Now really, it's one giant hologram. So that's what makes the mind everywhere. It's everywhere. The mind is not in my brain. Don't make that mistake. They go into the mind and they they go into the brain looking for the mind and looking for answers. It's just flesh, and the power or the effect that the brain has is all given by the mind. So we could say, here's the earth. And here we are. Here's Here we are. This is Lisa and I standing here holding this thing. Okay, so here we are. And we, as seemingly separate individual selves, see how the ego just wants to keep splintering into trillions and trillions and trillions of pieces, just splintering and fragmenting separate self, separate, down to individual atoms and molecules, and and then we can say people, places, and things, and planets, just constantly splintered out. And what I was saying in the last lesson, if this little tiny fragment of the mind that's known as Jeff Bailey, my self construct, if I take personal responsibility for the world, or personal responsibility for my life, I'm still stuck. I want to depersonalize it. Okay, I have a personal journey here. My journey is different than yours, but it's our yoga to depersonalize it and undo our stories, undo our self identification. This would be little s, self. This is big S. So I want to undo all the things that make up Jeff Bailey as a belief and as a self construct, and I want to switch over the undoing that lets me identify with true self. And see, this is what we all have in common. We all have, as long as we believe we're here, we all have the struggles and the pain of suffering in the human condition. We all have that in common. And that's where the Buddha was all about compassion. We can be compassionate to that. Mother Teresa was in our lifetime, the quintessential compassionate one who found her way home in the bowels of the planet, really. And so we have that human condition in common, but then we also have one love, one self, one truth, one reality. We also have that in common. I've heard some mystics or some teachers say, how far does a let's just say, how far does a Course in Miracles student need to be able to count? One. It's the only number you need to know, really. One love. And so hopefully this diagram might help a little bit. And so you can see how the ego projects. This would be projection. Right? So the ego is projecting. I've given the analogy of a projector and the light coming through and being cast on to the wall in the movie theater. It's the same thing, except we could say this is the cause with a little c cause, little e effect is the world of time and space. Our yoga, our job down here as separate individuals on planet Earth is to kind of, in a way, complete the cycle. And how do we get back here but through forgiveness? And as we forgive, we start to that is the undoing of the ego and the uniting with spirit. And now what starts to happen is, as we begin to actually deny the non-existence of the ego, we negate the negative, then what starts to happen is now uh, love comes through. That's why the Beatles said, all you need is love. It really is true. All you need is love. And so now this is, remember, the Holy Spirit is an extension of God, and God gives incessantly. So we could say we could say Spirit is the extension of God. The love that God gives is an extension of God. As creations of God, we are extensions of God. So love is extended. Fear is projected, love is extended. And once we develop this relationship, this conduit of connection, we're home. Well, we're on our way home. God takes the last step, but we're home free, because nothing about the illusion is upsetting. And it's regardless of the thought system, there are many non-dual paths. This is the message of many mystics. You renounce the world and merge with true self, and all is taken care of. Yeah. All right. So hopefully that helped. That's kind of fun. Okay. Thank you. Got it.
Yeah.
That was 12 minutes. That's not too long. We could squeeze that into maybe the next one.
I think that's a great idea. If somebody's not interested, they don't have to really,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Should I put it at the beginning of the next one or the end of this one?
The end of the one that we just did.
Yeah, put on the end and then just say, hey.
Because that's kind of when it came up anyway, and
Yeah.
it is appropriate. Yeah. It's
Cool.
still confusing.
It's still confusing?
Well, I mean...
Oh, should we let you ask some questions? No?
I think what I wanted... Let me just look at something real quick.
Should we turn it on? Or you want it to be
Can
personal?
I just get...
Yeah.
It's so weird when you hear something the first time and then, like, it's already changed.
Yeah. It's
kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, it might have been the first one, and so you can turn it on if you want to at this point. Just to say reality is never frightening.
Hold this a second.
Okay.
Oh, it's still going. Okay.
When I heard you going over the first lesson in lesson 52, I am upset because I see what is not there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and I guess this diagram did help, just that reality is up here with God, but the first sentence is reality is never frightening. It's confusing because when I'm frightened, it really does feel real because of the environment of being here on the earth, around other human beings. So it does get confusing sometimes.
So, I think this will help a lot. Mm-hmm. The reality that is never frightening is this reality. And ultimately, it's deep down. Remember, we were talking about getting to the prayer of the heart. Deep, deep, deep down is the prayer of the heart, which we could call desire. At the root of the mind is desire for either reality, capital R, or the illusion of false reality. And the reason for all the fear is ultimately this underlying guilt that we believe we left our Father. We believe we left home. We believe we left our source. So So the ego will have us thinking, oh boy, don't get in touch with those feelings. Don't go inside there because uh, once God finds out, once you get that close to God, He's going to strike you dead. You know, that's why we have the fear of God within us. You know, or we're God-fearing people. You know, let's try to do good and try to behave responsibly and all that, but don't get too close to God. Right? That's kind of this underlying thing. And so what the Course is telling us is that reality is never frightening. God knows only love, and He's calling us constantly, come on back, everything's good here, right? It's the story of the prodigal son. You know, God comes back and his father is just welcoming. That's the irony of the whole thing. But meanwhile, we have to solve this whole puzzle, the puzzle of life, where what we could rephrase that first line and say, reality, little r, the reality of this thing we call life is always frightening. From the ego perspective, it's it's designed out of fear. So it's going to be frightening until you start to, I guess in a way, discredit it and realize it's just made up. It's not our reality.
And the Course seems to be designed in these 50 lessons we've done, 52, like to begin to discredit, to start to understand how we can discredit.
It's a good word. I've never used that word before,
Yeah,
but
I like it too.
yeah. So Lisa just said, so the Course and these 365 lessons are all designed to discredit the ego and the illusion it made. Yes, that that's that discrediting one after another is the miracle. So the miracle happens the moment there's an undoing, and you just get this little feeling of, wow, everything's okay, or wow, I have a little moment of happiness, a little moment of release from the chains that bind. And then we start to have revelatory experiences, which are more of like a direct communication with God, and probably without even realizing, if you stop and think about it, you may have had some of those years ago when you were a little kid or whatever. And it's like, wow. And sometimes those revelatory experiences are just like, that's enough to help you realize, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. There's something else I want to seek instead. Yeah. Is that helpful?
It is very
Okay, good.